My name is Emily Carter. I'm 51. Last Saturday at 7:42 p.m., I stood in my own dining room watching my husband of 16 years tell four dinner guests that if my best friend Sarah was single, he'd trade me in for her in a heartbeat. And I finally understood that the $30,000 missing from our joint savings account wasn't the worst thing he'd stolen from me. Come on, Em, don't be so sensitive. Ryan leaned back in his chair, swirling his third glass of my Cabernet like he'd paid for it. It's a compliment to Sarah. Look at her. She's aged like fine wine. He gestured at Sarah with his fork, a piece of the rosemary chicken I'd spent 2 hours preparing still speared on it. Emily. Well, Emily is just aging. Sarah's fiancé Mark cleared his throat. My friend Jenny reached for my hand under the table, but I pulled it away. I didn't want comfort. I wanted to hear every word. I needed to remember this. Ryan, that's enough. Sarah's voice was tight. She'd been dealing with his inappropriate comments for 2 years now, though I hadn't known the full extent until 3 weeks ago. What? I'm just being honest. Ryan topped off his glass without asking. If Sarah here was single, I'd leave Emily for her before the check even hit the table. I mean, she's still got it. Em's let herself go. I was wearing the same dress size I'd worn when we met. I'd paid for that dress. I'd paid for everything on this table. The rosemary from my garden. The chicken from the grocery store where I'd used my debit card. The card connected to the account where my deposits appeared every 2 weeks like clockwork. And his withdrawals disappeared just as regularly into places I was only beginning to understand. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I walked to the bedroom without a word. It took me 4 minutes and 12 seconds to pack a suitcase. I know because I checked my watch when I started and when I finished. Ryan was still talking when I returned, still holding court at my table with my wine. I set the suitcase down in the middle of the dining room floor. Em, what are you doing? His voice had that edge it got when I did something that inconvenienced him. What does it look like? I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out my winter coat, even though it was August in Austin and 94 degrees outside. You're embarrassing yourself. He stood up. Sit down. No. It was the first time I'd said that word to him in 4 years. Let me take you back 6 years to the first time I met Ryan's father, Robert Carter. It was a Sunday afternoon in October, and Robert had invited us to his house in Cedar Park for what he called proper Texas barbecue. The man was 68 then, with hands that shook slightly from early Parkinson's, but he still insisted on manning the grill himself. You're the accountant, he'd said, shaking my hand with surprising firmness. Ryan told me you work those long tax seasons. That takes dedication. He'd said it like it was something to be proud of, not something to hide. His wife Diane had barely looked at me, but Robert had pulled out a chair at the patio table and asked me about my work like it mattered. Later that afternoon, when Ryan disappeared inside to watch a game, Robert showed me his workshop in the garage. I built most of the furniture in our house, he said, running his hand over a walnut cabinet. Diane wanted to buy everything new, but I told her, what's the point of having hands if you don't use them? He'd looked at me then, really looked at me. You strike me as someone who uses her hands, Emily. Someone who builds things. I'm better with numbers than wood, I'd admitted. Numbers build things too, futures mostly. He'd paused at his workbench, picking up a small box he'd been sanding. My son tells me he's doing consulting work from home. The way he'd phrased it as a question made something in my chest tighten. Yes, sir. Robert had nodded slowly, running his thumb over the box's smooth edge. Well, Emily, you remember this. The measure of a man isn't what he says he's building. It's what you can see with your own eyes. He'd handed me the box. This is for you. Keep your important things in it, the things that matter. I still had that box. It was in my nightstand, and inside it was every bank statement from the last 4 years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The first betrayal was smaller, More ordinary. It was April 15th, 2020, at 11:53 p.m., and I'd just filed my last tax return of the season. I'd worked 17 days straight, most of them 12-hour shifts, and I came home to find Ryan on the couch with a gaming headset on, shouting at someone named XX Dark Knight 420XX about respawn times. "Did you get the mail?" I asked, setting my laptop bag down. My shoulders ached. My eyes felt like someone had rubbed them with sandpaper. "Hmm?" He didn't take off the headset. "The mail. I'm expecting the water bill." "Oh, yeah. It came. I think it was like $340 or something." I pulled the bill from the pile on the counter. $340. We lived in a 3-bedroom house. Our water bill had never been more than $120. "Ryan, this says we used 15,000 gallons more than normal." "So? Must be a leak or something. You're the one who wanted this old house." "I wanted this house because it was what we could afford after you left your last job." I kept my voice level. This was a fact. Facts didn't lie. "Here we go again." He finally took off the headset. The martyr routine. "I work so hard. Ryan just plays games." "You know what? Maybe if you made me feel like a priority, instead of treating me like a burden, I'd be more motivated." I asked about the water bill. "And I'm telling you it's not my problem. You handle the money, Emily. That's your thing. That's what makes you feel important, right? Being the responsible one?" I paid the water bill. I also called the water company. There was no leak. Someone had been filling the pool Ryan had insisted we didn't need to cover for winter, 3 times a week. For my mental health, he'd said, so I could relax after those long shifts. 2 weeks later, I found a receipt in his jeans pocket. Not for pool supplies, for a steakhouse downtown, $287 for 2 people. I hadn't eaten at a steakhouse in 3 years. "Ryan, who did you have dinner with?" He barely glanced at the receipt. "Client meeting." "You don't have any clients. You haven't worked in 11 months. Potential client for the consulting." He said it like I was stupid for asking. "You want me to find work, don't you? That costs money, Em. Networking isn't free." $287? It was an investment. God, do you have to interrogate everything? This is why I don't tell you things. You make everything into a federal case. I opened the credit card statement that night after he fell asleep. There were 8 more steakhouse charges, 3 jewelry store purchases totaling $2,500. Cash advances from our joint savings account, $400 here, $600 there, $850 for business supplies. Our joint savings account that I'd been building for 8 years. The rainy day fund, the emergency buffer, the down payment on a future that kept getting further away. I checked the balance at 2:17 a.m. We should have had $47,000. We had $16,800. My hands shook so hard I had to put the phone down. In the morning, I printed 3 months of statements. The pattern was clear once you looked for it. Every 2 weeks, my paycheck deposited. Within 3 days, withdrawals appeared, sometimes labeled transfer to savings, except they never made it to savings. Sometimes labeled home improvement. We hadn't improved anything. Sometimes just cash, pulled from ATMs across Austin, at bars and restaurants I'd never been to. "We need to talk about the money," I said at breakfast. I'd laid the statements on the table, highlighted the withdrawals. Ryan glanced at them, then at me. "Are you seriously doing this?" "I'm trying to build something here, Em. Rome wasn't built in a day." "What are you building?" "I see money leaving. I don't see anything coming in." "Because you don't support me." His voice went cold. "You never have. You're just like my mother, always keeping score, always making me feel like I'm not enough. You know what? Forget it. I don't need this negativity." He left the house at 9:34 a.m. He came back at 2:15 a.m., smelling like whiskey and perfume I didn't wear. I went to work and filed tax returns and pretended my marriage wasn't dissolving at a rate of approximately $2,100 per month. By summer 2021, the savings account was down to $9,400. I'd stopped contributing. I'd opened a separate account Ryan didn't know about and had my direct deposit split 60% to joint, 40% to mine. I told myself I was being smart. I told myself this was temporary, that things would get better when he found work, when the pandemic ended, when something changed. Sarah noticed first. We'd been friends since college, 28 years of coffee dates and late-night phone calls, and knowing each other's orders at every restaurant in Austin. She'd watched me marry Ryan and had smiled through the wedding, even though I could tell something about him bothered her. Are you okay?" she asked one Saturday in September. We were at a coffee shop on North Lamar, and I'd just paid for both our drinks with quarters I'd scraped together from my car's cup holder. "I'm fine. Just, tax season savings. It's September." "Right. Saving for tax season." Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "Emily, talk to me." And I did. I told her everything. The money, the lies, the way Ryan made me feel like I was the problem for wanting to know where $30,000 had gone. The way he'd sit on the couch for 8 hours straight while I worked 60-hour weeks, then tell me I didn't make him feel valued. What I didn't tell her, what I didn't know yet, was that Ryan had already started texting her. Innocent at first. "Hey, can you recommend a gift for M?" Then less innocent. "You looked amazing at that party last week." Then aggressive. "Why are you ignoring me? I thought we were friends." Sarah blocked his number in March 2022 after he showed up at her yoga class uninvited. She didn't tell me. She thought she was protecting me from more pain. She thought he'd get the message. He didn't get the message, he got persistent. I found the notebook in July 2024, 3 weeks before the engagement dinner that ended my marriage. I was looking for a screwdriver in Ryan's truck. My truck, technically, the one I'd paid off while he was between opportunities, and found a black moleskin shoved under the passenger seat. The first page had Sarah's schedule written in Ryan's handwriting. Monday, yoga 6:30 a.m., core power on Burnett. Tuesday, works from home. Wednesday, yoga 6:30 a.m., then coffee at Bennu. Thursday, dinner with girlfriends, usually Julio's or Uchi Friday. Running trail at Barton Springs, 7 a.m. 20 pages of this. 2 years of her movements, her routines, her patterns. Screenshots of her Instagram posts with timestamps. Notes about her outfits. Red dress, August 15th, Mark's company party. Looked incredible. Lists of places she'd been, people she'd been with. And notes about me. At work late again. Didn't notice I was gone until 11 p.m. Too tired for sex, 3rd week in row. Opportunity? Fighting with me about money, would never be this bitter. I sat in that truck in the parking lot of my own home for 43 minutes. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Something had hardened inside me, calcified around my chest like a shell. I took pictures of every page with my phone. Then I put the notebook back exactly where I'd found it. 2 days later, Ryan's mother Diane called. "Emily, we need to discuss Ryan's birthday next month." "Okay." "I'm planning a small family dinner. Just us, you, Ryan, and Robert. I wanted to make sure you knew Robert hasn't been well lately. His Parkinson's is progressing." This surprised me. I didn't know. When did... Well, you've been so focused on work. I suppose Ryan didn't want to burden you. Her voice had that particular edge mothers develop when they're defending their children against all evidence. "Anyway, Robert's been talking about updating his will, making sure things are in order." "That makes sense." "Yes, well, Ryan is his only child. Naturally, everything will go to him when the time comes. I just wanted you to be aware, in case you and Ryan ever had difficulties. The estate will remain in the family." The threat was clear. "Don't leave my son, or you'll get nothing." "I appreciate you telling me, Diane." "Good. Robert's attorney is handling everything. That Hutchinson fellow on Rio Grande Street." I wrote down the name. Christopher Hutchinson, estate attorney. At work the next Monday, I pulled up the Texas State Bar website during my lunch break and looked up Christopher Hutchinson. His office was exactly where Diane said. I stared at the address for 5 full minutes. Then I called. Hi, this is Emily Carter. My father-in-law, Robert Carter, is your client. I was hoping to make an appointment. Mrs. Carter. The receptionist's voice warmed immediately. Yes, Mr. Carter mentioned you might be calling, Mr. Hutchinson has an opening tomorrow at 3 p.m. Does that work? Robert had mentioned I might call. I hadn't spoken to Robert in 2 months. That works perfectly. I took a half day off work, something I never did, something that would raise questions from my manager, but that I couldn't think about right then. I drove to Christopher Hutchinson's office at 2:47 p.m., 13 minutes early, and sat in my car running the air conditioning and trying to figure out what I was doing there. At 2:59, I walked inside. Christopher Hutchinson was maybe 60, with silver hair and reading glasses on a chain around his neck. His office smelled like old books and lemon polish. Mrs. Carter, thank you for coming. Robert was hopeful you would. I don't understand. Diane said he was updating his will. He is. Sit down, please. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. How much do you know about your father-in-law's estate? Nothing, really. I assumed everything would go to Ryan and Diane. That was the original plan. However, Robert came to see me 6 weeks ago with some concerns. Hutchinson pulled a file from his desk drawer. He showed me bank statements, Mrs. Carter. Joint account statements with your name and Ryan's name on them. He asked me if there were any legal protections that could be put in place for you should your marriage end. My throat went completely dry. He what? Robert is more observant than people give him credit for. Hutchinson opened the file. He knew his son wasn't working. He knew you were supporting the household alone. And about 3 months ago, when Diane had her hip replacement surgery, you came to their house every day for 2 weeks. You brought meals, you helped Robert with the physical therapy exercises, you reorganized their medications. Ryan visited once, stayed 20 minutes, and asked to borrow $5,000. Robert gave it to him? No, Robert told him to get a job. Hutchinson's expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the distaste around his eyes. That's when Robert asked me to revise his will, and that's when he asked me to prepare something else. He handed me an envelope. Heavy cream paper, sealed with wax that had Robert's initials pressed into it. Don't open it yet, Hutchinson said. Robert wants you to know that he's made provisions for you. When the time comes, and let me be clear, Robert is stable right now, we're talking long-term planning, you will receive 30% of his estate outright. Another 30% goes to Diane. The remaining 40% goes to Ryan, but it's held in trust with conditions. What conditions? He has to maintain employment for 12 consecutive months before he can access it. If he fails to do so within 5 years of Robert's passing, that 40% reverts to you. Hutchinson leaned back in his chair. Robert also paid your retainer. My what? For a divorce attorney, should you need one. Her name is Patricia Gonzalez. She's one of the best family law attorneys in Austin. He slid a business card across the desk. Robert paid $15,000 up front. That buys you approximately 25 hours of aggressive representation. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he was telling me. Why would he do this? Because he said you're the only person in his son's life who's ever worked as hard as he did. And he said he'd be damned if you'd spend the rest of your life paying for Ryan's laziness. Hutchinson's voice softened. Robert also asked me to give you this advice. Don't let Ryan know about any of this. Not the will changes, not the retainer, nothing. Wait until you're ready. Wait until you have everything you need. Then move decisively. I drove home in a fog. The envelope sat in my purse like a brick. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet. 2 weeks later, Sarah called me at work. It was a Thursday afternoon, 3:47 p.m., and I was in the middle of reconciling a client's quarterly taxes. I have news. Her voice was shaking, happy shaking. Mark proposed. We're engaged. I screamed. My coworker Patricia jumped in her cubicle. I didn't care. Oh my God. When? How? Tell me everything. She told me everything. The ring, the restaurant, the way he'd planned it for months. We talked for 27 minutes, and when I hung up, my face hurt from smiling. We want to do something small, Sarah said before we ended the call. Maybe dinner at your place? Just close friends. You, Ryan, Mark, and Jenny, and Tom. Would that be okay? Of course. Saturday, I'll cook. You don't have to cook. We can order. I want to. Let me do this for you. I meant it. Sarah deserved celebration. Sarah deserved everything good. Saturday morning, I went to the farmer's market and bought rosemary, chicken, good bread, fresh vegetables. I cleaned the house, really cleaned it, the way I hadn't had energy to do in months. I set the table with the nice plates we'd gotten as wedding gifts and never used because Ryan always said they were too fancy for every day. Ryan spent the day on the couch. You're going overboard, he said around noon when I asked him to help move furniture. It's just dinner. It's Sarah's engagement. So? She's engaged. We get it. You don't have to throw a parade. But I did throw a parade. I made the kind of dinner I would have made when we first got married, when I still thought effort mattered, when I still believed trying harder would make him try at all. Sarah and Mark arrived at 6:30 p.m. with wine and flowers. Jenny and Tom came at 6:45 with champagne. By 7 p.m., we were all seated around my dining room table, and it felt, for maybe the first time in 4 years, like my house was a home. That feeling lasted 42 minutes. At 7:42, Ryan made his announcement about trading me for Sarah. At 7:46, I was packing my suitcase. At 7:51, I was standing in my living room watching him process the fact that I was actually leaving. You can't just walk out. He blocked the doorway. We have guests. You're embarrassing me. Move. Emily, sit down. We'll talk about this later. No. I picked up my suitcase. We won't. Sarah stood up. Ryan, let her go. This is between me and my wife, Sarah. Maybe if you hadn't what? Sarah's voice cracked. Hadn't existed? Hadn't been her friend? I've been trying to stay away from you for 2 years, Ryan. Emily's the one person I couldn't cut out, even though it meant dealing with you. The room went completely silent. Ryan's face changed. Genuine confusion, then realization, then anger. What are you talking about? The texts. The showing up at my yoga class, the comments about my body, my clothes, what I eat, where I go. I saved all of it, Ryan. Every message, every uncomfortable interaction. I didn't tell Emily because she has enough to deal with, but if you're going to stand here and make this somehow my fault, you're insane. I was being friendly. You texted me 37 times in one day last April. 37. When I didn't respond, you showed up at my office. Sarah pulled out her phone. Want me to read them out loud, or should I just send them to Emily right now? Ryan turned to me. She's lying. She's jealous because you have a husband and she… Stop. My voice was calmer than I'd ever heard it. I found the notebook, Ryan. The one in your truck. With her schedule. 2 years of tracking where she goes, what she wears, who she's with. I took pictures of every page. His face went pale. Not white. Actually pale like blood draining. You went through my things? Your things? I paid for that truck. I pay for everything. The house, the food, the internet you use to play video games for 8 hours a day. The phone you use to harass my best friend. I've paid for every single thing in your life for 4 years. And you stole $30,000 from our savings to buy jewelry for women I don't know, and dinners at restaurants I've never been to, and you wrote a 20-page stalker diary about Sarah. My voice never rose. Facts don't need volume. Move out of my way. He moved. I walked to my car, put my suitcase in the trunk, and drove to a Hampton Inn on I-35. I checked in at 8:23 p.m., room 347, and sat on the bed staring at the wall for 2 hours. Then I opened Robert's envelope. The letter was written in his shaky handwriting on thick paper that smelled faintly of his workshop, sawdust and mineral spirits, and honest work. Dear Emily, if you're reading this, then you've reached the point where you've stopped making excuses for my son. I wish I could tell you I'm surprised it took this long, but you're loyal. That's not a flaw, no matter what Ryan makes you think. Do you remember the box I gave you? I told you to keep your important things in it. I hope you did. I hope you kept records, because you're going to need them. I've watched you pay every bill in that house for 4 years. I've watched you work yourself sick while Ryan treated you like a bank account with a pulse. I saw the way he looks at your friend Sarah, saw it years ago at your Christmas party, saw it again at our anniversary dinner. He doesn't think anyone notices. I notice. The original will revision is with Hutchinson, but I've also done something else. I've transferred the title of my workshop property, the 2 acres in Cedar Park with the building on it, into your name. It's been done for 3 months now. The deed is enclosed here. That property is worth approximately $340,000. It's yours. Ryan doesn't know about it. Diane doesn't know. It's titled solely to Emily Marie Carter. Also enclosed, bank statements showing Ryan withdrew $28,400 from your joint savings without your knowledge. I had a friend at his bank pull them after I saw the account summary you left on my kitchen table during Diane's surgery. Documentation of the jewelry purchases he made in March and June 2023. Jewelry I know you never received because I asked you about those earrings at Easter, and you had no idea what I was talking about. Witness statements from 3 neighbors who saw Ryan leaving the house at odd hours, coming back late, acting suspicious. A letter from Sarah's attorney documenting the harassment. She sent it to me 2 weeks ago, asking if I knew a good family lawyer for you. Patricia Gonzalez is waiting for your call. She's got everything she needs to file for divorce and to make sure Ryan doesn't get a dime of what you've built. She'll also file a restraining order if Sarah wants one, and I recommend she does. You are not a burden. You are not bitter. You are not aging. You're 51 years old, and you're the strongest person I know. My son is an idiot, and his mother enabled every lazy bone in his body. But you built a career, you supported a household, you took care of us when we needed it. You are the builder, Emily. Always have been. Call Hutchinson tomorrow. Call Patricia after that. Don't tell Ryan anything until the papers are served. He'll try to talk you out of it. He'll promise to change. He won't change. He's 49 years old and he still thinks someone owes him a living. You don't owe him anything anymore. The workshop is yours. Use it, sell it, burn it down if you want. But it's yours, free and clear. I had the deed transferred 6 months ago, and I've been paying the property taxes out of a separate account Ryan doesn't have access to. Build something beautiful, Emily. You've earned it. All my love, your stubborn old father-in-law, Robert, Dad, P.S. I always meant what I said that first day. The measure of a man is what you can see with your own eyes. You've been looking at my son for 16 years. Trust what you've seen. I read it 4 times. The deed was there. The bank statements were there. Everything he'd promised, documented, and real. I called Patricia Gonzalez at 8:47 a.m. Monday morning. By noon, the divorce papers were drafted. By 5 p.m., I'd signed them. By Wednesday, a process server handed them to Ryan outside the house. My house, the one I'd been paying the mortgage on, alone for 4 years. Ryan called me 17 times that day. I blocked his number. He called from his mother's phone. Emily, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Don't you remember what we had? What we had? Ryan, what did we have? Name one thing you contributed in the last 4 years besides debt and humiliation. I supported you emotionally. I was there for you. You were there? You were on the couch. There's a difference. I hung up. Diane called next. Emily, please reconsider. Ryan needs you. He's not well. This divorce will destroy him financially. Good. I hung up on her too. The mediation was scheduled for October 15th. Ryan showed up with Diane and a lawyer they'd scraped together. some guy named Brad Kellerman who practiced family law out of a strip mall near the airport. Patricia showed up with a briefcase that weighed approximately 12 pounds. Brad started with the standard demands. My client requests the marital home, 50% of all retirement accounts, and spousal support of $2,000 per month for 5 years, reflecting Mrs. Carter's significantly higher income and Mr. Carter's need for rehabilitation support. Rehabilitation support. Like I'd broken him. Like 4 years of free rent and free food and free everything wasn't enough. Patricia didn't even open her briefcase yet. Denied, across the board. Denied. On what grounds? On the grounds that your client dissipated $28,400 of marital assets, stalked and harassed Mrs. Carter's best friend for 2 years, and hasn't held a job in 1,460 consecutive days. Would you like me to continue, or would you like to see the evidence first? Brad glanced at Ryan. Ryan shook his head slightly. Patricia opened the briefcase. First, she laid out the bank statements. 3 years' worth, highlighted in yellow everywhere Ryan's withdrawals appeared. Cash advances, ATM withdrawals, credit card charges for restaurants, bars, jewelry stores. All spent while Mrs. Carter worked 60-hour weeks during tax season and paid 100% of the household expenses. Then the credit card statements. $287 at Perry's Steakhouse, $156 at Josephine House, $412 at Eddie V's, and my personal favorite, $2,500 at Brilliant Earth for an engagement ring. Mrs. Carter was already married to your client at the time. She never received this ring. Care to explain who did? Ryan started to speak. Brad put a hand on his arm. Patricia wasn't done. She pulled out photocopies of the notebook. 20 pages of Sarah's schedule, her photos, her movements. 2 years of stalking a woman who repeatedly asked your client to leave her alone. Text messages. She laid out printed screenshots. 37 in one day. Showing up at her workplace unannounced. Harassment. We have an attorney's letter documenting all of it. Diane made a small sound, not quite a gasp, but close. And finally, Patricia pulled out one more document. Mrs. Carter's work records from her employer, Maxwell and Strauss Accounting, time cards, badge swipes, client files. For every single day your client claimed she was neglecting him, ignoring him, or making him feel unsupported, Mrs. Carter was at work, generating income, paying bills, building a career, while your client, she looked at Ryan directly, while your client played video games and stalked his wife's best friend. The room was silent except for the air conditioning cycling on. Brad cleared his throat. We'd like to request a recess. Denied. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Here's the counteroffer. Mr. Carter gets nothing. No spousal support. No retirement assets. No claim on the marital home. He walks away with his personal belongings and whatever's in his personal checking account. In exchange, Mrs. Carter won't press criminal charges for the financial fraud or file for a protective order on behalf of her friend. That's unconscionable. What's unconscionable is stealing $30,000 from your spouse while she works herself sick to support you. Patricia's voice never rose. She didn't need volume. Mr. Carter has 3 options. Take this deal, go to trial and explain all of this to a judge, or refuse both and face criminal charges for fraud. You have 48 hours to decide. We left the mediation room at 4:17 p.m. Ryan was staring at the table. Diane was crying softly into a tissue. Ryan signed the papers 36 hours later. The divorce was final on December 3rd, 2024. The same week, Robert called me. Emily, can you come to dinner Thursday? Of course. How are you feeling? Strong enough to enjoy watching my son move his things out of my house. Robert's voice was warm. He asked if he could stay here. I told him no. Told him he needed to figure out how to support himself since he's 49 years old and hasn't figured it out yet. Robert, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Should have done it years ago. Diane's furious with me, but she'll get over it. She always does. He paused. I want you to know the workshop property is officially transferred. Deeds recorded. Taxes are paid through next year. It's yours. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just promise me you'll use it, build something, start something. Hell, rent it out and make money off it. Just don't let it sit empty. I promise. Thursday dinner was quiet. Just me, Robert, and Diane, who barely spoke to me but didn't leave the table either. Robert told stories about his workshop, about the furniture he'd built, about the satisfaction of seeing something take shape under your hands. Emily's got the space now, he said to Diane. Maybe she'll build things too, or maybe she'll lease it to someone who will. Either way, it's hers. Diane set down her fork. I still don't understand why you did this, Robert. Because our son is a parasite and Emily is a builder, and I'll be damned if I'm going to watch another woman get destroyed by a Carter man who doesn't deserve her. He looked at Diane directly. I love you, Diane, but you raised a boy who thought the world owed him something. Emily doesn't owe him anything, not anymore. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop on West 6th Street, writing this on a Saturday morning in June 2025. I'm 52 now. I rent a one-bedroom apartment in Hyde Park. I kept the house, sold it for $390,000, and paid off every debt Ryan left behind. The workshop property in Cedar Park is now leased to a custom furniture maker for $3,200 a month. My savings account has $83,000 in it. Every dollar is mine. Sarah and Mark got married in April. I was the maid of honor. Ryan wasn't invited, neither was Diane. Robert came. He danced with me during the father-daughter dance when Sarah's dad needed to sit down, and he told me I looked happy. I am happy. Not in some grand philosophical way, just in the small, specific way of knowing that when I pay my bills, the money is mine. When I work late, it's for my future. When I come home, nobody's waiting to tell me I'm not enough. Ryan tried to friend me on social media last month. I declined. He sent a message. I've changed. I have a job now. Can we talk? I blocked him. Diane sends Christmas cards. I send polite thank you notes back. We will never be close. That's okay. Robert's Parkinson's is progressing. He's 74 now. We have dinner every Thursday, just the two of us. He's teaching me to use the tools in the workshop, the one that's mine now. Last week, I made a bookshelf. It's crooked, and the joints aren't perfect, but it stands. That's all that matters, Robert said when I showed him. It stands. If you're reading this, and you're paying all the bills while someone tells you you're not doing enough, listen to me. You are enough. You've always been enough. The person draining you isn't confused about your value. They're betting you'll never realize theirs. I realized it at 7:42 p.m. on a Saturday night when my husband told dinner guests he'd trade me for my best friend. But I'd known it for 4 years. I just hadn't given myself permission to act on it. You don't need permission. You don't need someone to save you. You need bank statements and a good lawyer, and the courage to stand up and pack a suitcase and walk out of your own dining room while the rosemary chicken gets cold on the table. The measure of a person is what you can see with your own eyes. Trust what you've seen. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity, type "I chose dignity" in the comments. Or if you're still trying to figure out how to walk away, type "I'm working on it." Both are valid. Both take courage. And if this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening.